Welcome back to the Gridiron Expert. Week 10 of college football can be summed up in one word: chaos. We saw 9 teams in the college football playoff top 25 lose. 7 of those, of course, were due to the 7 ranked versus ranked matchups. We saw 2 teams, Iowa State and Ohio State, lose to 2 unranked teams, just as I predicted. I told you that I think there would be a few teams that were unranked that would defeat them. Definitely didn't see the Ohio State game coming, but I felt fairly confident in that West Virginia pick. But it was a crazy week of college football, so tons of exciting games, some very close games. Not many teams in the top 10 lost. We only saw 2 of those, Ohio State and Penn State, getting upset on the road at Michigan State. The top 4 stayed the same: Alabama, Georgia, Notre Dame, and Clemson, all winning those games fairly easily. Clemson almost losing on the road to North Carolina State. We saw an exciting shootout between Oklahoma and Oklahoma State, the big Bedlam rivalry. Told you that game would have tons of offense. Oklahoma won that game 62-52. So all in all, it was a great week of college football. There's going to be some major ranking shakeup on Tuesday night when the committee releases their new top 25. As I predicted last week, I told you there would be huge shakeup after all these games were played. And there's definitely going to be, I think the top 4 will stay the same. But the teams below that, 5 through 25, there's going to be some huge shakeup in there. And we actually will see some teams that could be contenders that we didn't think would be at this point in the season. So we're going to see in a second, we're going to break it all down for you. But before we begin, it's been a while, if you remember what this is. I'm here to call a few people out. I missed the mark on BYU, big time. I predicted BYU to go 9-4 this season. Right now, they are 2-8. And I'll be honest with you, I don't think anybody in the country saw BYU being 2-8 at this point in the season. However, one of the games I got right on BYU's schedule was their loss on the road to Fresno State. And for some reason, that was the game that triggered every BYU fan. They did not think they would lose to Fresno State. They thought that was ridiculous. Final score from Saturday night: Fresno State 20, BYU 13. So I'm going to break this down just for a second. Wyatt Merbrook says, lost to Fresno State? Ha ha ha. Who's laughing now, Wyatt? Tomater629 says, I think losing to Fresno State is crazy, and I think we'll beat Boise State. BYU is really good under pressure. Yep, that sums up their 2-8 record for sure, Tomater. C. Bart Smith says, I just want to make sure I understand. A horrible team last year, Fresno State, who only had 1 win on the season, will be able to beat BYU? Yes they will. Rex Clough says, losing to Fresno is not even close to correct. This will be another blowout loss for BYU. I think he meant to say another blowout win, but he, whatever, Rex Clough. BYU, oh man, this is a train wreck this season. JMG Koogman, BYU played Fresno 2 years ago, a 52-10 shellacking. The teams weren't comparable, and the 2017 version of BYU is going to be an even better team. No way Fresno State will have enough to win, even at home. Yes, they did. Fresno State, I believe, is 6-3 right now. They are bowl eligible, and I missed the mark on that too. Did not expect Fresno State to go bowling. I did project them to do a lot better than they did last year with only that 1 win. But with all those returning starters, I felt very confident they would pull off the upset over BYU, and they did. And I just wanted to prove these people wrong here that we're kind of triggered and hating a little bit over me projecting BYU to lose on the road to Fresno State. It's been a horrible season. I'm sure every BYU fan would be extremely happy with that 9-4 season that I predicted earlier in the year. A lot of people thought BYU would go 13-0 if you go back and read those comments, and that was preposterous as they were playing LSU, Wisconsin, Mississippi State. There was no way they were going 13-0, 12-1, whatever. And then one other thing I'd like to point out is my Heisman watch from last week. All the players on there did disappoint this week, except for Baker Mayfield, who had 598 yards against Oklahoma State. I could totally see him being the front runner right now. A lot of people commented and said J.T. Barrett should have been on there. And my reasoning there was I didn't want to put J.T. Barrett on the Heisman watch because he only had 1 great game, in my opinion. His biggest games this season were Penn State and Oklahoma. He disappointed against Oklahoma, had a great showing against Penn State, but 1 game does not define a Heisman season. Against Iowa, a 31-point loss, he threw 4 interceptions. And that's why I did not put J.T. Barrett on my Heisman watch this past week, because I wanted to see how he played against tougher teams like Iowa, Michigan State, and Michigan. Caleb King said, J.T. Barrett is a bigger Heisman contender than at least 2 of these bums, referring to some of the players on my Heisman watch. And Caleb King has totally been proved wrong, and that shows why he is not a gridiron expert. So, having said all that, we're going to finally get down to our Week 10 recap, see how I did on my predictions, and show the teams trending down and trending up. So let's get right to it. So this week in Week 10, I went 22-12, which is about a 65% winning percentage. Now before we get deeper into that, I want everybody to remember that I'm not changing my picks that I made in the preseason. So I've totally missed the mark on teams like BYU, Iowa State, Georgia, Florida, and Florida State. But teams that have overperformed, had a key injury, or even underperformed, my opinion has definitely changed on them as the season has progressed, but I haven't changed my picks because it's simpler just to keep it the way they are. That way to confuse anybody else or even confuse myself as the season progresses. So this 22-12 record might look a little worse than it really is. I obviously would have changed picks if we were doing this weekly, but we're not. We're keeping it as they were from back in the summer, and I want everybody to remember that as well. So teams like Florida State, who had a key injury to Deondre Francois, I would have changed many picks this season due to that, but I haven't changed them. I've decided to keep them. So yes, I had them going 11-1 had he stayed healthy. I believe right now they're 3-5 or something like that. And obviously I would have changed that if we were making weekly picks, but we're not. We're keeping them as they were in the preseason. So I want to just reiterate that for everybody that's a first-time watcher or maybe a previous viewer. I just want everybody to remember that. That brings our overall record to 307-99. We just missed the 100 loss mark. That will, of course, come next week. I don't expect myself to go undefeated. But that's still a little bit above 75%, which in the end will be the goal this season, to get to a 75% winning percentage or better. That would mean I would get every 3 out of 4 games right, and I think that is a very solid season, in my opinion. So these are the teams that I have trending down. UCLA, I could have put them on the board a lot earlier in the season. They've been a major disappointment for the Bruins fans. Last year was a huge disappointment. They had such a high-quality quarterback in Josh Rosen. I know he battled injury last year. This year, though, they are 4-5. They were nationally ranked. They had that huge comeback over Texas A&M to start the season. They lost to Memphis, I believe, in Week 3, and that's when I think it really was the beginning of the end for them. They're going to be lucky to make a bowl game this season. They've got to win 2 of their last 3. They've still got games against Arizona State and USC. So sitting at 4-5 is not great for Bruin fans. I could expect their coach to get fired in the offseason. That's just been a horrible season for them. Josh Rosen, I could easily see departing for the NFL after this season. But 4-5, I have them trending down. They just got beat by Utah on Friday night. And like I said, it's been a horrible, disappointing season. Lucky to make a bowl game. I could have put them on this board a lot earlier, but I decided not to. Oregon is a team that's 5-5. They just got beat by Washington, and that wasn't a game they were expected to win, but they have lost 4 of their last 5 Pac-12 games to make it 5-5, 5-5 right now. I do expect them to make a bowl game, sitting at 6-6. They've got Arizona coming up next week or in 2 weeks, and they've got Oregon State to close out the season. So I definitely expect them to beat Oregon State and get that 6th win in Willie Taggart's first year as head coach there. But definitely I think it's been a disappointing season for the Ducks. I think they thought they were back, especially with the start they had, defeating Nebraska early on in the season and sitting with a very good record. But losing 4 of their last 5 is not what they expected. But 6-6, getting to a bowl game is not a horrible mark for Willie Taggart in his first year. And I think he will eventually get Oregon back to their dominance that we were used to seeing. And then Penn State, you could disagree with me here, saying they're not necessarily trending down with back-to-back losses to Ohio State, where they blew an 18-point lead, and then they went on the road and lost to Michigan State at the buzzer, with Michigan State kicking a field goal to win that game. I really just think they were trending down. They were number 2 in the country. I mean, they were looking like prime playoff contenders. Even with the loss to Ohio State, they still had an outside chance of getting in, sitting at number 7. Now, with 2 conference losses, I don't see any way that Penn State slips into the playoff at all. I don't see there's any way of them making the Big Ten championship. So this has been a really disappointing ending for Penn State. Hopefully they won't slip up at all for the rest of the season, but you never know in the world we live in. But Penn State, back-to-back losses, not the season they were kind of hoping for, especially sitting at number 2 in the country. Now, teams trending up. Iowa, 6-3, defeated Ohio State, pick 6 on the first play of the game, and then defeated Ohio State by 31 points. So what a game for Iowa. They're sitting at 6-3 right now, and just imagine what their season would be like right now. Their 3 losses came to Michigan State, 17-10 loss there, Northwestern, a 17-10 loss, and then Penn State, a 21-19 loss. If they had won 2 of those, if not all of those, imagine where they would be right now in the college football playoff rankings. I think they will slide into the committee's rankings this week on Tuesday night. I think they will be in the top 20, if not maybe top 18, somewhere around there, because that win over Ohio State was extremely impressive. Just imagine where they would be right now, how they defeated these three teams right here. So overall, though, Iowa looking good. They have a huge game next week against Wisconsin. Big old rivalry game there, so that's going to be a fun one to watch. If they defeat the number 9 Badgers, who I think will move up a little bit in the rankings, you know, Iowa's looking like a really good contender in that Big Ten right now. Army, team that's kind of flown under the radar a little bit. They're sitting at 7-2. They've already accepted a bowl bid to the Armed Forces Bowl, but they've won 3 games without completing a pass, which is extremely impressive. Ahmad Bradshaw has done a great job there, playing quarterback, mostly running, of course, for the most part. They're sitting at 7-2, have the potential to finish with a 10-2 record. I do expect them to beat Navy in that Army-Navy game for the 2nd year in a row. So this is probably one of the best seasons Army has had in years. So, like I said, they've flown on the radar. They don't play anybody huge. They've lost the 2 big games. They lost to Ohio State early on in the season, but overall, a great season for the Black Knights. Northwestern, a team that was 2-3 early on in the season. They've now won 4 straight. They're sitting at 6-3. Their schedule is very easy for the rest of the season. Had the potential to finish 9-3, and I had them going 10-2. So overall, Northwestern is doing a great job turning things around there. Pat Fitzgerald, their head coach, done a great job not letting the season be lost after the disappointing start. So Northwestern's looking great. And then Michigan State, who is now the head of their division in the Big Ten, defeating Penn State, like I said, at the buzzer with a game-winning field goal. They are now, I believe, 7-2. Huge game next week against Ohio State. That game is probably going to determine who wins that Big Ten division and goes on to play more than likely Wisconsin in the Big Ten championship. Some are saying Michigan State still has a chance at the college football playoff. I don't know. With 2 losses, it's going to be tough. But the 2 losses are not too bad. Losing to Notre Dame early on in the season, that's 1 non-conference loss. And then losing to Northwestern just 2 weeks ago, or last week, on October 28th. And that game went into 3 overtimes. So not horrible losses, especially now that Northwestern is picking things up. So Michigan still has that outside shot of making the college football playoff, but they're definitely on a roll, definitely on the rise. I think they're going to take a huge leap in the college football playoff rankings on Tuesday. And speaking of that, make sure you tune in on Wednesday. We're going to have another rankings video. We're going to break down the college football playoff new rankings for Week 11, see if we disagree or agree with them. I think the top 4 will stay the same, but the teams below will definitely make a switch. So make sure you keep your eye out for that. Thank you for watching. Please continue to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you next time on The Gridiron Expert.